Disclaimer: the following video contains an organized and objectified remix music tier list from the Super Smash Bros. Series. It contains provoking thoughts and concerns from each remix in the games, all coming from this one random guy on the internet. Music is subjective, so not everyone's thoughts and lists might match with myself and others, so please take this into consideration. There will be anger, rage, and a tiny hint of salt, so watch at your own risk. If you do enjoy this video, however, go ahead and give it a like and share it amongst your peers. And why not go ahead and comment on why my tier list is so bad and why my choices were not to your liking. I would love to see what you'd have to say after watching this video. All things considered, I do really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen in on what I have to say in this video. Now, get comfortable and grab some headphones. Let's get right to it and enjoy the sounds of the remixes of the Super Smash Bros. Series. Enjoy. Alright, welcome back to my super hot take music tier list for Smash, and first up might be the hottest take of the whole video. Starting off really early for you fuckers so we can just get the hate train out of the way. We have the airship theme that first appeared with Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES. This was the theme that plays when Mario or Luigi have to go through on the airship levels of the game, and this theme can be used when later Mario games incorporate airships, like in cutscenes in Super Mario Galaxy, or in more levels, such as the new Super Mario Bros. Series. The instrumentation for this theme uses a live orchestra with a heavy brass and drum line, with supporting strings and a synth to make it feel pretty dreadful. The first part of the song kicks off with a feeling like the original game, then goes into full blast of the orchestra into your eardrums. The middle section features a hurry-up jingle to signify that you don't have a lot of time to beat the level, and the remix kicks it up a notch by going almost more than half the speed that it was playing on originally. I gotta say, it is a pretty awesome remaking of a classic theme, but it just isn't my style to listen to. I really enjoyed that bombastic feeling of the orchestra, but then when that second part hits with the music going faster, I think that synth here is just not very good at all. Once that ends, I moderately enjoyed the orchestra, but once sped up, it transitions over to the loop of the first part where the enjoyment stops, and I just have to listen to the slow version again, and it's like a never-ending cycle of ups and downs for me. Also, I feel like it's one of those remixes that just tries a bit too hard or takes itself way too seriously to be very fast-paced, like with many Ultimate remixes before it. Wait a second, this is a Brawl remix? Forget what I said, but it actually makes sense in a way. This is a pretty great remix for what it's worth, and I assume a lot of people will be bashing me in the comments for this pick, but sometimes I just can't really find myself enjoying other popular remixes more than others. Jeez, we can't get enough of Wii Sports music apparently. Lots of remixes to cover for this series alone, and most of them just downright suck. But today we'll go through the Wii Sports series medley, which covers both Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort. Well, the remix calls itself a medley, but it's really just both games' title themes playing one after the other. The first being Wii Sports and then Wii Sports Resort for the second section, then it loops back to the beginning. The instrumentation for this remix is pretty much an equal counterpart given that it is a fairly faithful remix to the original themes, plus adding in more instruments for a more tropical feel to it, especially in the resort section of the remix. We have the usual synth to play for most of the melody, while brass instruments, a bass and electric guitar, and various percussion instruments come into play. The tempo is also slightly faster than the original counterparts, but I wouldn't be surprised if people would say that these feel the same, speed-wise. But honestly, another solid remix, especially that bass guitar. Damn, I don't know why the bass goes so hard for these Wii Sports remixes. Honestly, without that new instrumentation, this remix would have been a lot lower, but I decided to give it the benefit of the doubt since it's just a fun remix of times from the good old days. I mean, who doesn't want to go back and reminisce every once in a while? The resort section for this remix is obviously my favorite. Really gives out that tropical vibe, and it is a good transition to boot too, with that cool electric guitar bridge in my opinion. Even with that faster tempo from the original, it is still a bit on the slow side, which doesn't help itself in a fighting game, but I found it enjoyable enough to slot it here into this rank on the tier list at least. Yeah boy. Here's a personal favorite remix of mine. We have the title theme from the 2015 Wii U game Super Mario Maker. And as it plainly says, this theme is the title music for said game. What have you expected, something else? Instead of a very droned out airy synth theme from the original game, this remix turns up the tempo with a super jazzy remix with the synth still being used as a main melody, but added in a bass and electric guitar, drum set, and xylophone while still maintaining the chiptune aesthetic from the original source material. I just can't lie, this remix is super fun and I love listening to it every so often. It's the claps. I can't help but not clap along with the tune. The second loop for the remix also starts off with an 8-bit chiptune style for the theme as well, which makes it super unique in a way. I do like it when remixes do that sometimes. The downsides for this remix, however, is that I really don't like it in a game of Smash. This is an odd one. It's fun to listen to by itself, but whenever it gets played in a game of Smash, that fun, joyful feeling just dissipates inside of me. Not to mention that this theme flies under everyone's radar since no one bothers to turn this up in the My Music settings, so I wouldn't be surprised if some people actually didn't know that this remix ever existed. It actually didn't show up in the base game of Smash 4 after all. It came with the free update for the Super Mario Maker stage as DLC, so I can see how it wouldn't be that popular to listen to. I could be in the wrong about the popularity, but still, this is a pretty great theme on its own, so I think this is a solid rank 273 for me personally. Maybe I can put it up a bit higher on the tier list, but I think the other remixes I do have higher are just a bit better than this. Now, here's a remix that could be classified as a whatever track to some people, just like how I put the Cul-de-Sac remix that I mentioned in a previous video. And I was actually going to put this remix side by side with that one too. But after listening to this one a bit more, I quite dig the vibes that it brings out, and it is far from forgettable to me. This remix is from the 3DS game Style Savvy Trendsetters, just like the title says. It is a medley of songs from the game. It starts off first with the opening cinematic theme. Yes, this game has a cinematic for whatever reason. And then it goes to the register theme, and finally the title theme for the game where it shows the title screen, for a 3 songs in 1 remix. Nothing from the style of music has changed much from the original tunes to the remix. Most of the instrumentation and tempo from the originals are pretty much staying the same, so that might deduct some points for the originality scale of things. But it is honestly such a fun and unique remix that I cannot have a smile on my face for some reason whenever this plays. And this is all from a fashion game. I'm just surprised that they managed to make a remix from a fashion game in Smash, and it isn't that bad at all. I mean, have any of you heard Ring-a-Ding in Ultimate yet? Straight up banger. This is a neat music piece personally, just not too special considering that they kinda mashed up the original themes to make it a remix. However, I'm glad that I eventually moved this remix a bit higher up than I previously had it. It's a sleeper pick for sure, but a damn good one at that. I wouldn't expect anyone to actually give this one a listen and to put it pretty high on their own personal tier list, but you should put some respect on style-savvy trendsetters for being the one to come out of the norm of the whatever type of genre of music. And look at that. This is the first Banjo-Kazooie remix featured on this tier list. And while the Banjo remixes are probably the most popular remixes for Smash Ultimate, y'all probably going to agree with me that Mobo's Mountain is probably the weakest of the bunch. Or maybe I'm just insinuating that it is and I'm just talking out of my ass for this one. Regardless, I put this remix as my least favorable Banjo remix, but it's still a great solid remix nonetheless. This theme appears in the very first world for the Nintendo 64 game, Banjo-Kazooie, and much like with the original song from the game, the remix is a faithful adaptation to the source material, but added a sort of jazzy feel to it with a heavy emphasis on woodwind, brass, and xylophone playing the main melody of the theme, with supporting tuba, percussion, and guitars. The tempo is also a bit faster than the original, but certain portions are given a half-tempo beat rather than a full-tempo beat, and just like in Ultimate Remix fashion, the key is raised on the final go-around for the remix before the loop back to the beginning. Like I said before, this is a solid remix with no noteworthy negative qualities, just a bundle of jazzy fun to be had when listening by itself, and while playing some Smash-In. There are a bit of slow parts here and there, but the enjoyment I have with this one is still pretty great. Kind of a shame that this remix is considered the less popular fan favorite for the Banjo-Kazooie series, but given that all the other remixes are certified bangers, I guess some sacrifices just had to be made. Won't be a while to the next Banjo remix, so rest easy fanboys. Also, a fun fact when doing some research, if you alter the playback speed for this remix to 0.75 from 1, it sounds just like the original tempo to the Nintendo 64 song. It's pretty cool, you should check it out. After you finish this video, of course. You're not going to be clicking off now, right? And just when I thought I was done talking about quote-unquote forgettable remixes, here's another one that just doesn't really stand out from the other remixes in the pack. But in all honesty, it's not really forgettable. People just don't really know where to look for this one when it is hiding in the other music section and they never really cared to look. But besides all that, this is a medley of songs from the Wii U launch game, Nintendo Land. 3 songs are featured in this medley, first playing the main hub where you can go around the hub area of the game. Then plays Monita's theme, which is the host of the game, and plays when she talks to you through dialogue, and lastly the tower minigame theme, before looping back to the hub theme. Instrumentation for this remix uses a big band jazz style approach to the song, which mostly uses a synth for the melody, which definitely sounds like brass instruments, but I assure you it is a synth playing instead. An electronic guitar, xylophone, and drum set are supported in the background of the remix as well. If I really want to, I think this remix can be much higher on the tier list than where it is currently. It sounds very lively and hyped up and sounds like it was made for parties in a way, which I guess Smash and Nintendo Land were made for. But who watching this video actually took a listen to this remix before I played this to you all today? I doubt half of you have. Y'all are just too lazy to look for it. And while I do like what the music has to offer, I feel like it's just too, happy for me to actually like. The carnival-style music never really fit with me ever growing up, and I'm just not a fan of that type of style, so yet another subjective music rank for me, yet again. The electric guitar in the second and third parts of the remix are very cool though, I'll give it that, so I think this will be the perfect rank for this obscure remix. Maybe I might put it up higher if I do a revision at a later date. Coming from a very lighthearted remix to an all-encompassing serious one, we got Kazuya Mishima Devil Kazuya from the PlayStation 1 and arcade game Tekken 2. This theme is played whenever the player fights as or against Kazuya in normal battle. There is another song in the game called Emotionless Passion, which is also in Smash Ultimate by the way, that plays just like this theme but with a different tone and is played during the arcade mode boss fight where Kazuya is the final boss. While there are similarities between the two, such as the melody being the same, there are some key differences from the two with different tempo and instruments, so that there is no confusion between both pieces. This is indeed Kazuya Mishima's theme, and not Emotionless Passion in the Smash remix. One other thing to mention is that this is also Yusuke Kudo's one and only Smash remix he ever produced. Instead of a grungy electronic mix that plays in the original theme, the remix here is played with a live orchestra and choir instead, with some rock elements like an electric guitar and drum set. This remix is definitely suited for intense one-on-one fights in Smash, especially on the Mishima Dojo stage where this is played on. While I kinda like it a lot in a game of Smash, I can't help but love it a lot so much to put it higher on my tier list. Once again, I feel like it just tries too hard like with other Ultimate remixes that go way too hardcore than it really needs to be, and the beginning is pretty slow. Although the choir in the beginning is super good however. Man, I gotta love that fucking choir. Serious themes are good, but this is like, really super serious. Probably the most serious theme out of all the remixes in Smash. I get that it's Kazuya Mishima and he's a badass with a badass theme, but there's just some things that can be taken way too seriously, you know? Alright, I just need to stop saying serious so much. Point is, I think it is a great remix. I won't have a hissy fit if this gets played in the game sometimes. Actually, this song does get played a bit too much since people don't know how to change their My Music settings, and this remix is at the top of the list for Mishima Dojo. Regardless, I think it is much better than the original by a long shot though. But with the newer, much more electronic pop music from later games in the franchise of Tekken, having an orchestral rock song kinda misses the point. I don't know, maybe I should shut up now since I never really got into Tekken seriously enough. Ah, damn it, I said it again. I think it's time to move on. Now it's time to go over the second of the 3 Luigi's Mansion remixes, this one being the main theme from Luigi's Mansion that was produced for Ultimate. Originally heard on the GameCube, this theme plays when the game shows its title screen, And it's also the leitmotif of the main game as well, since it plays when Luigi makes his way through the dark hallways when he is humming the tune. In the middle of the song, the Game Boy horror sequence gets played as well, and then the second part of the song slows down into a waltz-like state, then crescendos into the training theme before the loop. You can honestly say that this is a medley remix if you really want to. And funny enough, we have another arranger who only made this one remix as well, being Masumi Yoshi, then dipped out from making any other arrangements. Instrumentation-wise, this is played from a live orchestra, if you couldn't already tell. It mostly features string and brass instruments with various percussion instruments in the mix. This does also fit very well into the Luigi's Mansion series, just like with the Brawl remix I mentioned at the first video, and I do applaud it for actually making the tempo being raised much faster, making it a much better song to fight to in a Smash setting. While it does fit the source material as well as its fast-paced nature, I'm really just not the biggest fan when it comes to this type of music. You can call me a hater if you really want to, but I couldn't bring myself to like this one all that much when listening to it constantly. The different styles of the music go well together with good transitions, but I'm sorry, it's really just not my cup of tea. I'll give credit to Miyoshi for making a good fast-paced track, and that reason alone will put this decently well on my remix tier list. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up for this placement. Oh yeah, time to talk about a song from one of my favorite games of all time. Yeah, I may be a dirty Fire Emblem fan, but I try to keep things objective for my tier list, and this remix could have been so much better in my own personal opinion. This is Destiny Ablaze from the 3DS game Fire Emblem Awakening. This theme plays in multiple maps as you progress through the story, when your controlled units initiate a fight against the enemy. The theme does also play when looking at the map while not battling, but it is based on the actual fighting theme since it's more of a grandiose tone. The original theme uses a compressed orchestra sound since it was on a handheld system, but the remix now uses a live orchestra and focuses on the fiddle and tin whistle as the main melody, with electric guitar, string instruments, and percussion to support the track. I don't really have any complaints about the musical quality that this remix has. I'm just being a butthurt crybaby fanboy about the style of music it portrays. Objectively, it's a great remix that gets the blood pumping while fighting, and the tempo is a bit faster than the original as well. Even if Awakening is one of my favorite games ever made, the music is really lackluster, and Destiny wasn't a favorite song of mine since it was kinda overplayed all the time throughout the game. That, and Conquest as well. I just really don't like super oversaturated music in gaming. That, and that damn Fire Emblem motif at the end of almost every song in the game just downright sucks. And of course it snuck its way into this remix as well. Just really sick of this from playing the game after so many years. I should probably get back to the actual remix, huh? Well, for starters, I do think that the fiddle and tin whistle used as the main melody here is honestly a bit annoying. From what the Smash Wiki said, it is a Celtic-themed remix. I don't really know anything about Scottish music, but I assumed the bagpipes would have been a good instrument to use if it was a Celtic-style song. I must be so ignorant right now. I just really think that this remix would have been much better if other instruments were used as the main melody instead, but I can also see other people liking this remix for what it is. Well, agree to disagree on that front. It's not bad while playing in Smash like I said, so I'm not super butchering this really low on the tier list. I just hope you can all accept that. My god, I really have been covering so many damn title or main themes for games that I'm amazed I'm covering so many of them still. Thankfully, this is the last main theme that I'll cover for a while, so we can actually talk about the good stuff for fighting game music. This one isn't particularly bad to fight, however, but I still wouldn't put it very up high regardless. This remix is covering the main theme from the first Pikmin game, found on the GameCube. This theme usually plays during the title theme and can also be heard throughout the game as a whole for its leitmotif. Besides the usual forest and nature sounds from the original game, this remix is performed from a live orchestra this time around, with a heavy rock approach from heavier guitar riffs happening in almost every measure of the song, with a supporting bass guitar and drum set, and surprisingly a choir also joins in the middle too, which also has a faster tempo found in the original as well. Now, I really don't have a problem with this remix as an actual fighting game song for Smash, even though I kinda shat on some Ultimate remixes for trying a little too hard with its production value. I still really enjoy almost all the remixes that Ultimate provides, since they are all fast-paced and more energetic than the other Smash games have produced in the past. This remix is actually pretty great. It's fast-paced, has a good tension type of feel, and also a bit relaxing with its orchestra. Honestly, an awesome remix while looking at it in an objective standpoint, if I do say so myself. However, I just have one problem with this remix that I've been holding back, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate for this one reason alone. I just really think that the electric guitar riffs are a bit too much. I'm all for hard rock covers, but since the Pikmin series is known for very soft and compelling music, I would expect the orchestra portion to honestly be just fine without these rock elements. The first time I heard this remix on the Smash website when the game was soon to be releasing, I listened to it and I felt the guitar riffs were really off and a bit of a nuisance to listen to. And I still feel that way about them. If the guitar riffs were not present in this remix, and the bass and drums were the ones in it, I really think that this remix would be in my top 100. However, I feel like this is a generous rank to put this remix in regardless. Also, take for instance the part where the rock elements stop, and it is now left up to the choir to take its place, that the string instruments are used for the riffs instead. A bit unnoticeable at first, but if those strings were used instead of the guitar riffs here, boom, instant classic to me. Yeah, coming across another Fire Emblem remix so soon. This is a medley of themes from the third entry of the Fire Emblem series, Mystery of the Emblem on the Super NES. The first theme is called Advance, and plays on the map if the player is currently controlling the army in the Book 2 section of the game. Then we have Attack, when the units initiate the attack on the enemy, and also Defense, when the enemy initiates the attack on the units in Book 2 as well. And finally, the Fire Emblem theme plays at the end of the song before looping back to the beginning with Advance. The remix is an orchestral rock variation of the usual orchestra piece, but has a main use of electric guitars with bass and a drum set. The remix also includes synths that reflect the old sounds and music that were heard from the original game. It's a cool little touch. The remix itself is fine. It's much better than the Meeting series medley I already talked about. Much faster pace and has a lot heavier music, which can be great in a fighting game sense. The only problem that this remix really kills it for me is that damn Fire Emblem theme. Yeah, local Fire Emblem fan hating on the series theme he loves so much. Blasphemy, I know, but I'm just super sick of hearing it every time I play something from the series or Smash in general. It basically has the same problem with the overworld themes from Mario or Zelda. And that's really my biggest gripe. Everything else is super solid enough, just can't really stand that ending theme for the remix. If that was cut and replaced with something like, I don't know, the final boss theme from Mystery, that would have easily made this remix another top spot among the high tiers in my book. This might be another one of my personal opinions of objectivity, but I'm okay with this remix being here. I don't really think it's that popular of a remix anyways. we have yet another medley on our hands, this time covering the Yu Yuki medley. I bet a lot of you are wondering what the hell is a Yu Yuki? Well, I also don't have a single fucking idea on what it is too, just know that this game never made it out to the West, and comes from the olden days of the Famicom, and this game is also the spiritual successor to Shin Onigashima, which is also another Japan exclusive. While American and European countries don't even know what this game series is, apparently it is a visual novel game like in the Famicom detective games that were recently emerged with English subtitles for the Switch, so maybe we might see this series come to the West with remasters sooner or later. Back on topic for the remix, this actually has the most amount of themes in any medley seen so far for a Smash remix, so I'm just going to go down the list here and... oh boy, here we go. First we have the opening title theme, then we have Name Entry, Battle Theme, Meteor Shower, Go West, Dancing People, the second part of the main background music, not to be confused with the first part for whatever reason. Then we have the demo background music, Women Village, Parting Ways, and lastly Bull Demon King Clear. A whopping 11 musical themes for this one Famicom game. Holy shit, that's some dedication for an old game like this. Now for the instrumentation for this remix. It's mostly led by an iru, a traditional Chinese string instrument that has a very unique sounding twist, and also an electric guitar is played on some of the melodies too, as well as a synth and drum set can be heard in the background. Thanks to the SSB Wiki for getting all this information, I would be seriously lost without it. While it's a nice musical piece for sure, to have so many short themes around this one remix is no slouching matter, and it is at least nice and pretty to listen to. It can be a bit soft at times, and some themes for this remix might sound a bit off given that this is meant to be played in a fighting game. Also, some of the transitions are a bit weird to me. It comes in a bit slow, then speeds up abruptly, and sometimes slows down again. Not a huge fan of those transitions. But I will applaud for the uniqueness that this remix has. Definitely one of the strangest remixes in Smash for real, but diversity is really cool to me, and it does a good job of holding its own, being unique against the other remixes that we've listened to so far. Props where props are due, but I definitely would listen to some other remixes instead. Especially the Shin Onigashima medley that we've yet to discuss, so I feel that this is a good spot to be put in for the Yu Yuki medley. Journeying back into another Pokemon arrangement, this being our second remix to the Battle Pokemon theme from Diamond and Pearl that also has the same arranger from our last remix, being Yuka Tsujiyoko. As the title stated, this theme plays when encountering a wild Pokemon and battling it for the Generation 4 DS titles, Diamond and Pearl. This remix is made from an orchestra with hints of rock and electronic elements, and a synth playing a few parts of the melody with the orchestra and an electric guitar, bass and drum set in the background, and also a cool bongo section near the ending piece before the loop. As you may already know, or might not know, not too sure if anyone would care to remember, but I've already covered the cut Smash 4 remix of the same name as this one. This Brawl remix was cut in Smash 4, but then rejoined the music roster when Ultimate came out, leaving the Smash 4 remix in the dust for reasons unknown. I wouldn't mind seeing both remixes in the same game, but I can understand the confusion. Regardless, this remix pretty much has the same tempo and also a huge likeliness from the original DS game, just with an updated orchestra and rock feel to it. Not a bad remix by any means, and can have a pretty good impact when playing in a game of Smash. I do wish we could compare the Smash 4 remix to the Brawl one in Ultimate. Hell, if that happened, I could have had the Smash 4 remix in a much higher position than it is currently at. Maybe even higher than this Brawl remix, but I think this is still a good spot to put the Brawl remix at here. Yeah, this remix isn't bad, but I just heard way better Pokemon remixes than this one. The Brawl remixes for Pokemon are just watered down orchestra remixes, and are not as fun as the other remixes from 4 and Ultimate. I guess I can be a bit picky about my music choices, but I still stand by my opinions of it. Also, this remix sounding like the original game, it doesn't really give it that much brownie points, but it still sounds really cool to me, so at least I'll give it that benefit of the doubt. Back to more Animal Crossing remixes. I'm actually a bit surprised that I'm still covering them. Well, this time we got Cap'n's Song, which can be heard on the 3DS title Animal Crossing New Leaf. This plays whenever the player takes a ride on Cap'n's boat across the ocean to reach Tortimer Island. Instead of a softer arrangement from the original game, this remix brings out a more beach vibey type of song, which really reminds me of that early 2000s era of beach rock music. This remix is a bit on the grungy type of rock music, with guitars and a drum set from what you can expect from that style of music, but also adding in brass horns for the melody of the piece as well. And of course, in weird Animal Crossing fashion, the character Cap'n is also singing along in this weird, arbitrary voice sing he's got going on too. He sings 2 songs from the original game and has brought both together in this remix. They're called 1A and 1B, with a slight key change in tone for when he's singing in the last part of the song before the loop. You can already guess on why I have this remix pretty low on the list. Well, actually we're nearing the middle point on the tier list, but who's keeping track here? Point is, I think this singing is a huge step down and could be considered weird or a bit silly. Personally, I find it a bit annoying. Since I never played an Animal Crossing game in my life, I just have a bit of a bias towards other songs than this one, so sorry for all the fans that like this. But truth be told, I actually played this remix against some of my mutual friends, and I asked if they liked the song while playing some games in Smash with. Some said it was alright, and others said that they didn't really like the voice. Granted, they aren't Animal Crossing fans either, but it all makes sense on why I have it at this particular spot on the tier list. If a song choice ruins the fighting vibe, I feel like it is wasted potential. I could actually enjoy this remix a bit better if it wasn't for the vocals. If it had a different remix without vocals and have like another brass horn play instead of the vocals, I could see the remix much higher than it currently is. I'm basically giving this remix the benefit of the doubt though. The music here is at least awesome to listen to, and if I look past the weird vocals, then I can see myself having a good time listening to this and playing Smash at the same time. Weird how all that works out, huh? Here we got an interesting and unique remix to go over. We have the underground theme from the Game Boy game Super Mario Land. Just like the title says, this plays when Mario is traversing in the underground levels of the game. Instrumentation-wise for this remix plays a funky techno mix which uses synthesizers as the main melody, with an electric drum set and guitars for support, and has a higher tempo from the original. What's pretty cool here is that an organ plays the opening notes for the remix, and I like that aesthetic a lot compared to the other remixes when incorporating organs to the mix. Also, I like the Middle Eastern vibe that this gives out, given that you traverse through deserts and pyramids from the original game. I'm really not too sure what the Sarasaland Kingdom is like, since that game was the only depiction of the kingdom. Nintendo really needs to do more for their own original source material, like, seriously guys, it's all laid out for you here. Besides the point, this is a really neat remix to play, and I think this is a very popular pick to listen to amongst Smash fans, given that it has some contribution for the Subspace Emissary for nostalgia purposes. But I don't know why I really have it low on the tier list. I kinda feel like this remix just isn't for everybody. I think it's also a bit out of place for music in Smash, especially for stages in the Mario series. Except for maybe Mushrooming Kingdom, which gives that desert vibe some meaning to it. What would be pretty neat if they added the underground stage of Mushrooming Kingdom, which would probably fit this remix a bit more. But alas, nothing we can do about it. I might be talking out of my ass again for like the 100th time, but I still stand by my word. I like the underground vibe this one gives out, but that's all I can really give it. I wouldn't complain if a lot of people really chose this remix over the other remixes if someone else makes another tier list in that regard. Also, it's another Koji Hayama remix, so we were bound to get the "Heys" again. Still don't understand what that all means for him, but I guess it makes the remix a little more unique, I suppose. Back to another wild Pokemon battle theme. There are actually a lot of these as well, but at least they're different musical pieces across the whole series. Looking at you, Mario and Zelda. Covering the Generation 7 Sun and Moon versions this time around, which were found on the 3DS. Like all the others, this happens when the player meets a Pokemon out in the wild to either fight or catch it. Or run away like a little baby if you so choose. This remix is more or less the same as the original music version, but done in a more electronic and quirky way with a huge emphasis on the synthesizer, with supporting piano, brass horns, and electric guitar added in that wasn't in the original before, although the tempo is pretty much the same here. Near the end of the remix, you can also hear the Pokemon series main theme before the loop back to the start. In my honest opinion, this is definitely by far the weirdest Pokemon remix I ever heard for the Smash series. Like, I know Pokemon is supposed to be fun and cutesy, and this remix definitely proves that point, but from all the other remixes before this one, it was all serious, with an added lighthearted tone in that contrast. The Generation 7 Wild Pokemon theme can either be depicted as a breath of fresh air, or super out of place. I'll take the latter on this one. Still, I think it's a solid remix for what it's worth, but I'll take anything else from the other Generation 7 remixes that were put into Smash, because they definitely fit the fighting fanatic better. I'm almost positive I can sense that most people will say the same too, but it still does a good job for a fighting atmosphere that I can't be too harsh about it. Rank 260 seems like the perfect place to put this remix in. After taking a huge hiatus from bashing Yoko's beautiful masterpieces, I'm once again doing the same thing here. This time we'll be talking about Pasta from Fatal Fury 2 that was found on the Neo Geo. This can be heard on the Venice stage for the game that is also associated with Terry's younger brother, Andy Bogard, and is regarded as his personal theme too. Instead of playing on a compressed MIDI like in the original, this remix embraces the Italian norms and uses an accordion and violin conjointly to play the pieces as melody, while piano, acoustic guitar, and a light drum beat are played in the background in grand Shimomura fashion. Don't take me the wrong way, but this is a very beautiful piece. The original song was actually a bit heavier with its percussion, and this remix is a bit more heavenly in comparison, but I can't choose to put one over the other personally. They are both excellent music pieces in their own right. I will have to say about the Smash remix though, it really doesn't fit the fighting vibes as much as its original counterpart, however. I see myself listening to this and thinking that I'm in actual Venice, rather than in Smash, funnily enough. This is definitely the odd one out of the whole bunch of SNK remixes that came with this DLC pack, but I shouldn't really complain too much. This remix is just as fast-paced as the original song, and it doesn't have any slowdown parts as other previous remixes do. Just fluent and subsequent pacing all around. And of course, that violin solo here just, man, it really gets me going. The duo that the accordion and violin provide here, it's something that we never really appreciate too often. Honestly, I'm kinda sad to put it here on my tier list. My Shimomura Disgracing shows no bounds, but it's just not the fighting song that I really would like to hear. Plenty other more hardcore remixes that I much rather listen to than this one in the SNK lineup, and Smash lineup in general. I'm actually a bit surprised. This is the first Yoshi remix that we've seen for quite a while. To be fair, there are actually 3 more Yoshi remixes left to cover after this one. Thankfully, they are pretty high up on the list. Spoilers, but let's talk about this one for now. This is from the Super NES game Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, when Yoshi is traversing in the overworld, so it's basically this game's athletic theme if you want to call it that. Pretty basic stuff here. What's really great about this remix is that it actually sports 2 themes instead of 1. They are both different variations to one another depending on the Yoshi's Island Brawl stage layout, which is the first we've seen, and we will ever see, so I'll give it some major props for originality. Those 2 variations are both seasonal differences, being a summer and a winter variation, and depending on the Yoshi's Island Brawl stage when you play this remix, it changes when the seasons intermittently change. Pretty neat stuff. First off is the summer phase, and it's the more energetic of the 2, with a brass horn focus and percussion instruments, with an added electric guitar that plays the final boss theme for a short time at the ending. Then the winter phase is next, and it's a more subdued version of the same remix, which uses Rhodes and accordion as the main melody, with quieter percussion for a more calming and tranquil rendition of the remix. Whenever this remix plays on a Smash original stage or a Yoshi stage that isn't Yoshi's Island Brawl, then the 2 themes can be played somewhat of a medley in a way, with summer being first and winter being second. If the remix is played on Yoshi's Island Brawl, however, whenever the season changes in the background, then it stops abruptly and transitions over to the theme that is meant to be currently playing, which kinda sucks at first. But it's honestly so cool how a stage dynamically changes the music, even if the abrupt stage transition usually doesn't sit well for me. I can live with it. The remix is pretty great, but it's still far from the best, and the summer version is really my favorite one since it's more energetic than the winter theme. I would honestly not have both themes together to make a medley if I'm playing on some other stage with this theme on. It kinda ruins my fighting vibe. If I had a choice if they happened to be separate songs, I would put the winter version much lower on the tier list and the summer version a bit higher than what I have right now. But seeing as they are together, I'll have to compromise and put both together and put this remix on this rank on the tier list. Maybe in the next Smash game we could see them separated somehow. I mean, they are both well-regarded remixes in their own right, but having one of them being super energetic and the other being super somber doesn't sit right, and switching them back and forth is not a great listening experience for playing in Smash. I just have this remix super high because of the complexity of switching back and forth for the original Yoshi's Island stage, which I do think is super cool in my book. I've, kinda gone too hard on this for no reason, so let's just leave it at that and move on now. Same with the Yoshi remix before, I haven't touched on a Mega Man remix in quite a while as well. And this might actually be a super shock to some of y'all, but I personally do not really care for this remix. But first, let me talk about it before I go super in-depth on my opinions. This theme originally plays in Mega Man 2 on the NES, when Mega Man traverses the level where Flashman is the boss. The instrumentation for this theme is a faster-paced version of the original, with a more hard rock style from the electric guitar and a synthesizer taking center stage for its melody, while more added synthesizers and electronic drums are heard in the background, giving it a very electronic and futuristic feel to it, similarly found in other Mega Man music. Which brings to me why I'm not a big fan of this remix personally. It really just feels too much like Mega Man to me, which is super fucking weird because this is a Mega Man remix after all. Well, Mega Man music and the Smash remixes are very electronic oriented, and that's fine, but taking that style of music and turning it up to 11 makes me feel like I've already listened to the same song over again, even in remix fashion, so it's just not very fun to me to listen to in my honest opinion. I seriously don't know why I have a gripe with this one Mega Man remix in particular. I feel like it just plays the same melody, just in a different variation over and over and over again, and it feels like it never stops. Only positives I see is that it's an alright remix to play in Smash, and I don't have a problem with that. It's just everything else I'm not a fan of. Not enough of unique things to it, and I think there should be more to cover during this remix instead of the overuse of the synth. And this remix is honestly a bit too long as well. Okay, sorry for my bitching about this one. I know a lot of people really jive with this remix, and I wouldn't complain if this remix in particular would be higher up on their own tier list. Maybe even as the best Mega Man remix period. It's just some music is just not for me, I guess. The other Mega Man remixes are more tended for the electronic synthwave type anyways that I will cover later, but to me this one is just fodder. I'm going to start a Mega Man war if I keep this going on, so I'll go ahead and stop and move on to the next remix. Oh, hey there Mr. Sakai. Actually nice to see you decently high up on the tier list this time around. In this instance we have another DK remix. This is the King K. Rool and Ship Deck 2 from the original Donkey Kong Country game on the Super NES. This theme is played during the fight between King K. Rool as the final boss of the game. This remix plays similar to what was found in the original Super NES game, with the same tempo but with updated instrumentation. It starts off something like you would hear from a sea shanty from a solo accordion performance, with an accompanying flute, bongos, and a ukulele, then quickly turns it up to a hard rock tune with a leading woodwind instrument, an electric guitar, bass, and a drum set to its side. Not to mention that sea shanty to the hard rock tune transition here is really superb, one of my favorites for these Smash remixes. And as you can already assume by the melody that is being played here, there are similarities to the Ultimate remix of Gangplank Galleon, and you'd actually be correct, this is the same song being played here. I find the name of this remix here confusing since this is Gangplank Galleon, but they just went with the title of the boss itself for no reason at all. Anyways, this remix is almost a one-to-one rendition of the source material, just updated instrumentation, and I'm all for it. David Wise, the original composer to the song, is a mastermind, and this remix is a generally great interpretation from his master craft. However, minus this hard rock middle and ending parts, the beginning has much to be desired to be used in an actual fight for Smash. It's great in the context of being on a pirate ship, where the song was originally on, but playing this on another DK stage feels a bit weird in comparison to everything else. Honestly, this remix would fit really well for the Zelda series' pirate ship stage, but I guess I'm going off ship here a little bit. This is still an awesome remix, but if Ultimate's version of Gangplank Galleon wasn't, well, Ultimate Gangplank Galleon, then I feel like this remix would be more appreciated than it is now. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Move over, Grandpa, the next line of greatness is here. Gotta be honest, I'm actually pretty surprised I managed to have this remix slip past so many others on this tier list. This is the Dark Lord theme from the 3DS Street Pass game, Find Me 2. Just like the title depicts, this theme is played when you fight the Dark Lord, but in extension, also plays during the fight against Dark Emperor, the secret final boss for the game too. The original music for this theme is much like the remix, but very compressed and used by MIDI due to the nature of the 3DS hardware limitations. For the remix, they use a live orchestra instead, with a more hard rock attribute to it with an electric guitar being used to coincide with the orchestra's performance to be a more fitting song for intense fights. I was originally going to put this remix way lower than originally planned. I thought this remix was also a compressed garbage mess of a remix since it was meant to be played on the Find Me stage on the 3DS version of Smash 4, and it kinda is compressed in a sense. But after listening to the original Find Me 2 version, I gave it the benefit of the doubt. The remix is indeed 10 times more better than the original. Holy crap, it's honestly painful to listen to that original song in the year 2024. Even though it is a huge step up than its original counterpart, I really feel like this remix is still compressed in a way. I just have this feeling that it should be in much higher quality. Not sure if that's another thing where my ears are not working like they should again. And for that stupid ass reason, I'm putting Dark Lord in this slot. It is still a good high octane remix and good for a fight in Smash. It's not a bad remix in the slightest. I'm just sorry for putting you so low in the beginning. Also, I forgot to mention that the original composer, Daisuke Matsuoka, also made the original composition for the Find Me games. Now, if I can only ask him why the Find Me games had really watered down music compared to these remixes. Talking about another Tekken remix already, we have Aloneness from Tekken 7. And this is actually the last remix ever produced for the Smash series, unless a new Smash game comes out in the unseeable future with more remixes. Regardless, the original theme plays as this game's roll credits theme. I really don't get why remixing credits themes for the Tekken series is being done here, but I guess it's warranted since most of Tekken's music is really awesome to listen to anyways. The original theme was accompanied by a female vocal singer and has a jazz style to it. Very different from what Tekken is usually known for, but similarly heard in Landscape Under the Ghost Kaminana, which we've already gone over. For the Smash remix, this theme gave it an orchestral spin, and the vocals are replaced by a solo violin while more string instruments are used to back up the soloist, with the piano from the original song doing the same parts as it did in the remix, with the drum set keeping an upbeat tempo. This remix also has a one-time composer that only produced one remix song for the Smash soundtrack as well, Yu Sugimoto. This remix is a tranquil but also a depressing piece. Compared to the original, however, it is also a bit more livelier, so given that context, I guess I could be a bit thankful that this was made instead of them using the original track from Tekken 7. Besides that point, this is not as lively as it could be for a fighting game. There's a reason why this is a roll credits theme, rather than a theme used for fighting in Tekken, and the same could be said in Smash. This is still a very beautiful piece in its own right, I just think I'm being a bit too harsh. But it really has a lot of soft parts that I wouldn't really be able to hear in the game unless I listened to it by itself. The piano is super cool here, but after the beginning section, it's not really played often here. I would really think that if the piano switched out the violin for the main vocal part of the song, maybe I could put it a bit higher. I'm actually very curious if that change could be warranted, being made higher on the tier list, but I'm still cool with putting this remix at this spot regardless. You know, it really saddens me to put this remix down so much. It honestly should be much higher given that Mr. Daytona USA himself, Takanobu Mitsuyoshi, arranged a remix from a dead franchise with his masterclass of vocalization and epicness abound. However, there is just one glaring issue that I cannot bring it any higher than it is now. I will talk about that later. For now, this is the F-Zero medley, which takes most of the songs from the first F-Zero game on the Super NES. The remix first starts off with Death Wind, and then moves to White Land. And once White Land moves to Firefield, then the lyrics are provided with it playing in the background. The Firefield section of the remix also has brief bridges for Mute City and Red Canyon during this phase of the remix, and then transitions to Port Town for the final part before looping back to White Land. Instrumentation for this remix is very techno-stylized, with a main focus of a synthesizer and basic electric guitar with drums mixed in, to focus on the past F-Zero music titles that sounded like they were back in the 90s, and the remix does a great job harkening back to that time period, as well as Mitsuyoshi doing a great job with vocal presentation. Okay, now here's my biggest bitch with this remix. I feel like the beginning of the remix was excellent, but after the loop from Port Town at the end, it then goes to start off with White Land instead of Death Wind. It doesn't loop back to that, which in turn is my favorite musical part of this remix. It skips out on the 15 seconds of the beginning after looping. I feel like that is a super step down from a generally solid remix. I can understand why they decided to appoint this transition from lyrics to lyrics, since it can flow much better, and I can agree to that in a way, but I just honestly would like to see the remix start from all the way at the beginning to Death Wind, to get the full appreciation of the music from start to finish. Maybe if the ending for the remix wasn't abrupt with the lyrical aspect and instead cut to something else, there could have been a better transition to fit it more, but that's a choice that they decided to make. Another thing to point out is the lyrics themselves. You know, I'm not opposed to Mitsuyoshi's lyrics in the slightest, but I once showed this remix to a friend one time. They didn't mind it either, but they told me that they couldn't understand a word from what he was saying. Since he is a foreign man to foreign ears, the broken English can make a lot of people have some possible distaste for the track as a whole. And not to mention that the lyrics itself sometimes makes no sense as well. If you've been reading alongside the lyrics playing in this video, like, who are these kings and queens this man is talking about? Dwarf enemies? It doesn't make too much sense in the grand scheme of things, but can be taken away by the use of subtlety and not taken seriously at all. Also, I find that the lyrics might be a hindrance to the actual music itself. I do sometimes enjoy lyrical video game soundtracks, especially with opera and choirs, but it really would be neat if this remix actually had a normal lyrical list remix and one with lyrics like this one, like some remixes have done in the past, like with the Bath Time or Light Plane remixes in Smash 4. Alright, feels like I talked about this one for quite enough. It's a great remix for a starving franchise, and I appreciate the lengths that Mr. Takanobu Mitsuyoshi provided with us. It's just really weird, and I feel like this remix goes perfect for this rank on the tier list. And now for a personal off-topic discussion. Before the time of writing this script and recording, F-Zero 99 was recently released on the Nintendo Switch, and it is just an awesome game straight up, but I wanted to touch on what I found really funny is that whenever I play the Port Town tracks in that game, I always think about this remix whenever Mr. Mitsuyoshi sings the lyrics of that section of this remix, and I sometimes sing along in my head whenever it gets played. Yes, this remix did a lot more to me than it was originally intended, and thought that was something I wanted to say. Alright, enough of my weird fantasies, let's just move on for now. Coming back to the man that only did Brawl remixes in his entire video game musical career, this remix might be a bit controversial, but I'm putting it at this spot nonetheless. We have Waluigi Pinball from the DS Mario Kart game. This song can be heard in, if you can actually believe it, the racetrack Waluigi Pinball, but this can also be heard in Wario Stadium as well in the same game. Both tracks have been re-released through other Mario Kart games later on with new musical remixes to boot. The Smash remix that was made in Brawl is a lot faster than the original iteration, with a heavy emphasis of electronic elements, almost entirely used by a synth for the main music instrument of choice, with electronic drums to set the beat. This remix is wacky and creative, and I can respect that given that the original representation that this theme has is also wacky and creative, but the Brawl remix is scaled up to 11 in this sense. The random sound effects are a cool touch too, especially that boing effect at the end of the remix before the loop, and there's a distinct key change as well near the end to differentiate itself from the original. It's honestly just a little too outrageous for my personal taste. I can listen to this remix for so many times, and I can get tired of it pretty quickly, truth be told. A lot of people love this original track, even calling it their favorite music track in the whole Mario Kart series. Not too sure with this Smash remix being their number one as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone did put this remix as their number one choice in Smash. To me, yeah, it's pretty overrated, and I'm gonna be crucified for saying that one. But it's upbeat, catchy, and very fast-paced for a smashing good time, so I'm not going to be too hard on being different from the rest of the other remixes that were made in Smash already. Ending off this video with, honestly, a pretty cool remix to personally talk about since it's made by Mr. Sonic Guitar Man himself, Jun Senoi. He only produced 2 Smash remixes in his career. The first one I'll be discussing is the Mega Man 4 medley first found on the original NES. This medley consists of 3 songs from the game, first one being Dive Man Stage, secondly Skull Man Stage, and then lastly Drill Man Stage before looping back to Dive Man. If you are familiar with Senoi's work as a video game composer, he has mostly made music for the early 2000s Sonic games, with a distinct rock style that he is known for, and this medley is all about that style that the majority of the people love so much. But this style of music can only go so far, and to be frank about it, I kinda got sick of hearing this remix and just feels very samey to me. Don't take me the wrong way, I love Senoi's work and the music he made for Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes. Those original soundtracks I will treasure forever. I even have the Crush 40 CD that I jam out to from time to time. But a 2.5-minute remix on a Mega Man game that not everyone appreciates and really played can only go so far. I'm a huge sucker for the Mega Man series of music in Smash, but not going for a techno song, instead going for a hard rock style music is a great change of pace. I would very much like to see Senoi create a Mega Man soundtrack of his own. That would be fucking awesome. Need to branch out to another blue hero for a change. I also really don't like the transition from Skullman stage to Drillman stage. I feel like that transition is super weak and could have been done better, but I might be bitching about that a little too hard. I mean, the remix is solid enough to warrant this rank. It never strays away from the Jun Senoi style, which is a good thing to some. It's very original to be taken from something in the Mega Man series, but that's about it. You listen to what you get out of this remix. I myself just wish it had a little more flair added onto it that makes it more stand-out-ish, so sorry fanboys. If this placement really pisses you off, go ahead and make your own tier list and put this on a more suitable placement for yourselves, if you really want to. How's it hanging, everyone? Down to 250 Smash remixes now. Can't wait to show you all what I have in store in the future, just hoping that everyone likes what I put out here, cause believe me, it is a lot of work putting this all together. Anyways, I really haven't given out a question to you all at the end of the video for quite a while, so I think it's about time to give you all a question to anyone who is inclined to answer. Today, I wanted to ask you all, what is your favorite genre of music to listen to? Personally, if you didn't already know just by listening in, hard rock, alternative, and heavy metal are my favorite genres of music to listen to. I really love it when heavy metal gets portrayed in all sorts of video game original soundtracks nowadays, especially in new Nintendo games. I basically had an eargasm when I first listened to Bowser's theme from Bowser's Fury whenever he appeared throughout the game. So yeah, just a short little question that hopefully a lot of people can answer. We'd like to see some comment threads in these videos and would like to hear what you have to say, whether it be the silly end question or the entire video for that matter. And yeah, that should be that. Thanks for tuning in and I'll see you guys next time. Take care everybody.